Hi there, welcome to Networking Video 4. We're going to take on some terms here: LAN, WAN, MAN, WLAN, PAN, CAN. I'm only going to do 3 of these first 3 in this video, and then I'll take on, in video 5, I'll take on these other 3 terms. Now, when you hear terms like this, first of all, don't get them confused with terms like network, internetwork, intranetwork, and so forth. They're sometimes used interchangeably, but they really have different meanings. Those terms, network, internetwork, intranetwork, have more to do with the connectivity, how they're connected together, whereas terms like LAN and WAN have more of a geographical meaning. So you'll understand more about the geography of this as I go, but let's jump right then into LANs after I tell you this, that the AN in all of these means area network, So just get used to that, and then all you have to do is remember the first letter. So you do need to be able to distinguish between these terms for the MTA. First of all, LAN. LAN is local area network. Now this is a very small geographic area, typically a room, a building, several rooms at a building. It might even be a few buildings at one site, like a campus. So these are typically LANs. So we're just talking about a very local thing. It's not across town. It's all in one on one site, so to speak. Some of the characteristics of these, first of all, we've already said it's a small geographical area. It's within one site. Second, I want you to understand that the protocols that call these things out, or the official standards, really only recognize twisted pair copper cabling as a type of cabling for LANs. Although we do use today fiber optic and other forms and some wireless forms of communication in a LAN, but the official, the TIA, EIA, or EIA, TIA, whichever way it is, TIA, EIA, EIO, the official standard, the 568, actually only recognizes twisted pair copper cabling. It also only recognizes something we call the star topology, although today we use other topologies for LANs as well, such as bus topologies and so forth. So, and I understand you don't know about topologies yet. That'll be the next topic we take up, but just take it with for what it's worth right now. Then here's the biggie, though. This last point here, that the equipment and the lines are all owned and managed by the organization that owns this LAN. So this is how you would distinguish between a LAN and a WAN. If I own the cables, I own the switches, I own all the equipment that I'm putting in, that I'm using to run this LAN, it's probably a LAN. Right? Now, WANs, on the other hand, these are wide area networks. These are networks typically that have maybe 2 different cities. So if I have an office in Chicago and another office in Seattle, I can put them on the same network, but I have to find a way to make them communicate, right? So they're geographically separated from each other, usually in different cities. There are lots of different ways that I can connect these things. I can use the telephone network system, I can use the internet, I can use dedicated lines if they're, in some cases. I can use other networks, the TV network, electrical networks, satellite networks. I have lots of different ways I can connect them. But notice in all of these situations, the phone, internet, dedicated lines, the equipment would all be owned by somebody else. So I might own some of my local equipment, some routers and switches locally, but I'm leasing some routers and switches as well as the lines from a third-party company. Now, just bear in mind, we haven't learned about protocols yet, but bear in mind that the protocols we use for WANs are different from the protocols we typically use on the internet. Typically on the internet, I use this IP address kind of thing. And again, we will learn about IP addresses later on, but this thing like 93.72.42.5, okay, that's an IP address I would use across the internet, but on a WAN, I might use another type of addressing in order to get from point A to point B. So we'll learn about those later on, but just be aware of it. Finally today, MAN. MAN is the Metropolitan Area Network. In this case, we're talking about buildings that are separated, but they're fairly close. They're in the same town maybe, or right across the border into another city. That would be a MAN. And a MAN quite often is, well, let's just say it's not used very much anymore. The term is falling out of favor. And the reason is because we typically use WAN technologies for these things, like the phone company again, or an ISP, internet service provider, in order to make these connections. So typically they're a WAN, although you could have a LAN that goes across town too. If you owned all the equipment, you just were able to string a wire or use maybe a microwave link across town, a very directional type of link, you could. So it could be a LAN or a WAN, but most often it's just a WAN. And so we don't use the term MAN as often, but it's a term you might see, and you should be aware of what it stands for, MAN, or Metropolitan Area Network. So sort of an across-town kind of thing. All right, come back in video 5, and we'll talk about those other 3 terms, the PAN, the WLAN, and what was the other one I didn't do? The CAN, I believe it was. So we'll talk about those next time. Thank you very much.